What if the most powerful blood sugar intervention available to you right now costs less than $2, has been used medicinally for 4,000 years, and is currently sitting in the produce aisle of your local Walmart? And the reason your doctor has never mentioned it has nothing to do with whether it works. Here is the uncomfortable truth that most health content will never say out loud. There is a vegetable that has now been studied in multiple randomized controlled trials, published in peer-reviewed journals, replicated across different countries and patient populations. And the data consistently shows meaningful reductions in fasting blood glucose, A1C, triglycerides, and markers of kidney damage, not in theory, in actual human clinical trials. And yet, almost nobody over 50 has been told about it in a way that actually explains why it works. Not the vague version, not it has fiber and antioxidants. The precise biochemical version, the version that tells you which enzymes it inhibits, which hormones it stimulates, and which cellular repair pathway it activates, that no single diabetes medication currently addresses. That is what this video is. A complete mechanism-level explanation of 7 distinct ways one vegetable interacts with the biology of blood sugar, ranked from least to most powerful. And I am warning you now. The mechanism at number 1 is going to reframe everything you thought you understood about why blood sugar becomes harder to manage after 50. It is not what most people expect, and it is not something most videos get anywhere near. Stay with me, because what is coming at the end of this conversation is genuinely different. Not a vegetable, a pharmacy. Before we rank anything, you need to understand what you are actually dealing with, because okra is not simply a fiber source. It is a multi-compound biochemical system, and once you understand its structure, the mechanisms stop seeming surprising and start seeming almost obvious. Okra, scientific name Abelmoschus esculentus, belongs to the mallow family. It has been cultivated for over 4,000 years, originating in the regions around Ethiopia and Sudan. Okra, scientific name Abelmoschus esculentus, belongs to the mallow family. It has been cultivated for over 4,000 years, originating in the regions around Ethiopia and Sudan. Ancient Egyptian records document its medicinal use as far back as the 13th century. And traditional medicine systems across West Africa, South Asia, and the Middle East have used okra preparations specifically to manage what we would now classify as diabetic symptoms. The excessive thirst, the fatigue, the frequent urination, for centuries before the glucose meter existed. They did not know the mechanism. They simply observed the outcome. Now we know the mechanism, and it is more sophisticated than most people realize. When you slice an okra pod, that sticky, viscous substance, the one most people find unpleasant, is called mucilage. It is a complex polysaccharide matrix containing galacturonic acid, galactose, rhamnose, and arabinose. These are not passive fiber. They are bioactive compounds that physically interact with the lining of your small intestine in ways that directly affect glucose absorption. But the mucilage is only one system. The seeds inside the pod contain an entirely separate pharmacological layer. Flavonoid compounds called isoquercetin and quercetin 3,0-gentiobioside. These have been shown in laboratory studies to directly inhibit the enzymes responsible for breaking carbohydrates into absorbable glucose. 2 systems, 2 mechanisms, working simultaneously. No single diabetes medication does both. And those 2 systems are just mechanisms 7 and 4 on this list. What is coming between them, and especially what is sitting at number 1, is where this conversation becomes genuinely important. The antioxidant shield and the cholesterol reset. Mechanism 7, the antioxidant shield. When blood sugar runs chronically elevated, it generates oxidative stress. Free radicals attack the walls of blood vessels, damage the capillaries supplying the kidneys and eyes, and degrade the nerve fibers responsible for sensation in the feet. The numbness, the dry cracks, the slow wound healing, these are not simply aging. They are oxidative damage driven by glucose exposure over years and decades. Okra contains multiple classes of polyphenolic antioxidants, quercetin, catechins, myricidin, that specifically target the type of oxidative damage elevated blood sugar causes. A review published in Food Production, Processing, and Nutrition confirmed that okra's polyphenolic compounds suppress inflammatory cytokines, specifically tumor necrosis factor alpha, and reduce the oxidative stress markers that drive diabetic complications. More precisely, the quercetin glycosides in okra do not simply neutralize circulating free radicals. Research has found that isoquercetin and quercetin from plant sources reduce hydrogen peroxide generation within kidney cell mitochondria, stopping the cellular damage before it begins, not cleaning it up after the fact. That is not symptom management, that is upstream protection. Mechanism 6, the cholesterol and triglyceride reset. If you are managing blood sugar, there is a high probability you are also managing cholesterol and triglycerides because they are not separate problems. They are expressions of the same root dysfunction. Insulin resistance causing the liver to convert excess glucose into stored triglycerides. A 2025 meta-analysis published in Phytotherapy Research, pulling data from 6 randomized controlled trials, found that okra supplementation significantly reduced fasting blood glucose and, notably, also dropped triglycerides and total cholesterol. A 2025 meta-analysis published in Phytotherapy Research, pulling data from 6 randomized controlled trials, found that okra supplementation significantly reduced fasting blood glucose and, notably, also dropped triglycerides and total cholesterol. The mechanism is elegant. Okra's soluble fiber binds to bile acids in the gut. Your body manufactures bile acids from cholesterol. When okra pulls those bile acids out of circulation, the liver is forced to draw more cholesterol from the blood to replace them, effectively running your body's own internal cholesterol clearance system at higher speed. 1 vegetable, 2 metabolic problems, same root cause being addressed. But here is what makes mechanisms 5 and 4 genuinely surprising, and they both involve comparisons to prescription medications that cost hundreds of dollars a month. GLP-1 stimulation and the enzyme blockade. Mechanism 5, natural GLP-1 stimulation. GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1, is the hormone that injectable medications like semaglutide and tirzepatide are designed to mimic. These medications cost between $800 and $1,300 per month without insurance. Okra stimulates GLP-1 production naturally. Here is how. When okra's mucilage enters the gut, it forms a viscous gel that slows the movement of food through the digestive tract. This pushes nutrients deeper into the small intestine, specifically toward the lower sections where L cells are concentrated. L cells are the specialized cells that produce and release GLP-1. This pushes nutrients deeper into the small intestine, specifically toward the lower sections where L cells are concentrated. L cells are the specialized cells that produce and release GLP-1. GLP-1 then tells the pancreas to produce insulin, signals the liver to stop dumping glucose, and slows gastric emptying, reducing post-meal blood sugar spikes. The pathway is the same as the expensive injectable. The magnitude is less, but for someone who is pre-diabetic, early stage type 2, or looking to support what their medication is already doing, this is not trivial. Mechanism 4, the enzyme blockade. There is a class of prescription diabetes drugs called alpha-glucosidase inhibitors. They work by blocking the enzyme that breaks complex carbohydrates into simple glucose in the small intestine. Slow the enzyme, slow the glucose release, reduce the post-meal spike. Okra's seed compounds, specifically isoquercetin and quercetin 3-O-glucopyranoside, selectively inhibit 2 critical digestive enzymes, maltase and sucrase. And in laboratory analysis, isoquercetin was found to be 6 to 10 times more potent than a related compound at this inhibition, 6 to 10 times more potent, inside a seed that most people discard. Additionally, Okra's mucilage inhibits alpha amylase, a different enzyme that works even earlier, breaking down starch before it reaches the glucosidase enzymes. So you get two-stage inhibition, upstream and downstream, simultaneously from the same pod. But mechanisms 3 and 2 are where this stops feeling like nutrition science and starts feeling like pharmacology. And I am not going to rush through them, because what comes next involves kidney protection through a pathway that generates one of the most expensive drug classes currently on the market. What you are getting right now, a mechanism-by-mechanism breakdown of a food-based intervention backed by peer-reviewed clinical research, explained precisely and honestly. This is exactly what Golden Glow Senior is built to deliver. Not ingredient lists without explanation. Not vague wellness advice. The actual biology of why things work, presented clearly for the generation that has earned the right to understand their own health at this level. If this video is giving you something real, subscribe to Golden Glow Senior right now. Every video on this channel follows this same standard. And what is coming in the next 3 minutes, including the #1 mechanism, the one that explains why a fictional patient's doctor went quiet for 10 seconds when she handed him her lab results, is something most health content never gets close to. Subscribe. Stay with me. The physical glucose trap and kidney protection. Mechanism 3. The physical glucose trap. Mechanisms 7 through 5 involve biochemistry, antioxidants, hormones, enzymes. Mechanism 3 is different. It is almost mechanical. The mucilage that forms inside your gut when you eat okra does not just stimulate GLP-1. It creates a literal physical barrier between the glucose in your food and the absorptive surface of your intestinal lining. A wall, not metaphorically, physically. When the viscosity of gut contents increases, glucose diffusion decreases. The sugar molecules cannot reach the intestinal wall as quickly because they are physically suspended in a gel matrix. Research confirmed this directly. The water-soluble fraction of okra significantly reduced glucose absorption in the gastrointestinal tract, not through chemical reaction, but through physical entrapment. Okra's mucilage contains a specific polysaccharide called rhamnogalacturonin, a form of pectin that creates a more viscous, more sustained barrier than most soluble fiber supplements. And for adults over 60 whose digestive enzyme production is naturally lower and whose intestinal wall is more permeable, this physical buffering of glucose has measurable effects on post-meal glucose spikes. Those spikes, the peaks above 180 after meals, are where the majority of long-term organ damage accumulates, not from average blood sugar, from the peaks. Flatten the peak, protect the organs. Mechanism 2. Kidney protection. Nearly 1 in 3 people with type 2 diabetes develops kidney disease, and by the time symptoms appear, by the time a doctor says kidney function is declining, significant damage has already occurred. Here is what the research found. A compound in okra seeds called isoquercetin has been shown to inhibit SGLT2, sodium glucose cotransporter 2, in kidney cells exposed to high glucose conditions. SGLT2 is the exact target of a class of drugs called SGLT2 inhibitors, medications that cost $300 to $600 per month and are prescribed specifically to lower blood sugar and protect kidney function. A separate study tested an okra polysaccharide extract on subjects with diabetic kidney damage. After 8 weeks, creatinine dropped, blood urea, nitrogen dropped, urinary protein dropped. Researchers observed reversal of structural kidney damage under microscope. This is not a small finding. And I want to be precise here. Okra is not a pharmaceutical SGLT2 inhibitor. The drug is standardized, precisely dosed, and FDA approved. But the biological overlap, the shared pathway, is real and documented. And it raises a question that the research community has not adequately answered. Why is this not generating serious clinical funding? That question matters. Hold it. Because the answer connects directly to the number one mechanism, and to why the most important insight in this conversation has been saved for right now. Peak placement. The insulin sensitivity reset, fixing the doorbell. Every mechanism covered so far manages consequences. The antioxidant shield protects against damage. The cholesterol reset clears a downstream effect. The enzyme blockade slows glucose entry. The physical trap delays absorption. The kidney protection guards an organ already under stress. Mechanism 1 does something categorically different. It addresses the actual defect. Type 2 diabetes is not, at its core, a problem of too much sugar. It is a problem of cells that have stopped responding to insulin. Insulin is present. The signal is being sent. But the receptor, the cellular machinery that receives the signal, has been damaged by years of chronic inflammation and oxidative stress. The door is locked. The signal cannot get through. Every medication that lowers blood sugar by adding more insulin, blocking glucose production, or forcing excretion through the kidneys is working around a broken system. None of them repair the receptor. A 2025 meta-analysis published in Phytotherapy Research, pulling data from multiple randomized controlled trials, confirmed that okra supplementation reduced fasting blood glucose by an average of 21.7 mg/dl and reduced HbA1c by 0.42%. In clinical medicine, a reduction of 0.3% or more in A1c is considered the threshold for meaningful reduction in complication risk. Every 0.1% reduction corresponds to approximately a 10% decrease in microvascular complication risk. Kidneys, eyes, nerves. Okra's quercetin glycosides modulate peroxisome proliferator-activated receptors. They enhance the expression of GLUT4 glucose transporters on cell surfaces. And they suppress the NF-κB inflammatory cascade that has been progressively damaging insulin receptor signaling over years of chronic low-grade inflammation. In plain language, Okra's compounds help the cell answer when insulin knocks, not by flooding the system with more insulin, not by forcing glucose out through the kidneys, by repairing the signaling pathway that chronic inflammation damaged in the first place. A 2023 double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial gave type 2 diabetic participants 1,000 milligrams of okra 3 times daily for 3 months. Fasting blood glucose dropped. A1c improved. C-reactive protein, the clinical marker of systemic inflammation, went down as well. No liver side effects. No kidney side effects. No adverse events. 3 months. A food-derived compound. Multiple measurable improvements. 0 documented harm. That is the finding that made a fictional doctor go quiet for 10 seconds when a patient handed him her lab results after 11 years of unchanged numbers. Not because the vegetable is magic, because it was doing something his prescriptions were never designed to do. It was fixing the receptor, rebuilding the system. You do not see this in 3 days, you see it in 60 to 90 days. Because you are not suppressing a symptom, you are repairing infrastructure. 4 mistakes that cancel the benefit. Before the protocol, 4 specific mistakes that will eliminate or reverse everything covered above. Mistake 1. Timing with metformin. Research published in ISRN Pharmaceutics found that okra's mucilage physically entraps metformin molecules in the gut, significantly reducing the drug's absorption. The vegetable that traps glucose will trap your medication. Separate them by at least 2 to 3 hours. Never consume okra at the same time as metformin. Mistake 2. Raw okra in large quantities if you have kidney stone history. Okra contains calcium oxalate. Cooking reduces oxalate content significantly. If you are prone to kidney stones, always cook okra rather than juicing or consuming it raw in large amounts. Mistake 3. Assuming more is better. Clinical trials used 4 to 6 fresh pods, or 1,000 to 3,000 milligrams of okra powder daily. Exceeding this does not improve outcomes and increases the likelihood of digestive discomfort. Begin with 2 pods daily and increase to 4 over 2 weeks. Mistake 4. Relying on okra water alone. Soaking pods overnight and drinking the water delivers partial benefit at best, perhaps 30 to 40%, because the seed compounds remain in the pod. Every clinical trial used whole okra, cooked. Eat the pod. Do not discard the seeds. 5 steps, starting tomorrow. 1. Buy fresh okra. Firm, bright green, no longer than 4 inches. Frozen is acceptable, canned is not. 2. Start with 2 pods daily, sliced and sautéed in olive oil for 5 minutes. Add turmeric and black pepper. Both enhance absorption and contribute independent anti-inflammatory effects. 3. Increase to 4 pods by week 2. Morning consumption is optimal. It allows the mucilage to coat the intestinal tract before the day's largest meals. 4. If you take metformin, separate your okra meal from your medication by 2 to 3 hours. Bring the research cited in this video to your next appointment. 5. Track your fasting glucose every morning. The research shows meaningful changes begin appearing between 4 and 8 weeks. You are looking for a direction, a consistent downward trend, not an overnight number. Before the conclusion, if you have stayed through this entire video, you now have the complete picture. 7 mechanisms, the absorption science, the critical warnings, the clinical data on A1C reduction, and the one mechanism, the insulin sensitivity reset, that separates this from every other food-based intervention most people have heard of. This is what Golden Glow Senior does. Every single video. Mechanism level, evidence-informed, honest. Built specifically for the generation that deserves this quality of information most. Subscribe now. Share this video with someone over 50 who is managing their blood sugar and has never had it explained this way. Turn on notifications, because the next video covers what happens to your blood sugar, specifically during the overnight hours, and why your morning fasting number may have nothing to do with what you ate the night before. This channel exists for you. Do not miss what is coming. 7 mechanisms, 1 vegetable, less than $2, an antioxidant shield that protects at the mitochondrial level, a cholesterol reset driven by bile acid binding, natural GLP-1 stimulation through the same pathway as medications costing over $1,000 a month, a 2-stage enzyme blockade that slows carbohydrate breakdown upstream and downstream simultaneously, a physical glucose trap that reduces post-meal spikes through viscosity, not chemistry. Kidney protection through a pathway shared with a class of drugs costing hundreds of dollars monthly. And at the center of it all, an insulin sensitivity restoration mechanism that addresses the actual defect, not its downstream consequences. This is not a cure. It is not a replacement for medical care or prescribed medication. It is a daily, evidence-informed addition to a protocol, one that works at the molecular level, costs almost nothing, and has been sitting in the produce aisle for your entire life. After 50, the right question is never whether a single habit will fix everything. The right question is whether every consistent daily choice is moving the internal environment in the right direction. This one does.